He wasn't supposed to find it, yet Ghost's paws knew the way. The morning mist clung to the rolling hills of the old battlefield like a shroud, each blade of wet grass glistening with droplets that reflected the pale, muted sunlight struggling through the clouds. Isaiah Cole moved quietly behind his white K9, the scent of damp earth and pine filling his lungs as the dog paused, ears erect, nose to the ground. The old cross loomed ahead, weathered wood leaning slightly, engraved letters almost erased by time, and Ghost growled softly, a low vibration that seemed to echo the heartbeat of the land itself. Isaiah squinted through the fog, remembering the stories of this place, men lost, promises unkept, and the silent weight of those who never came home. He felt the air tighten, the kind of tension that made the skin on the back of his neck prickle as Ghost lowered to the ground, claws scraping softly against the frost-stiffened soil, digging with a purpose that seemed guided by memory rather than instinct. The sound of earth moving, faint but deliberate, cut through the silence, mingling with the distant call of a lone crow and the whisper of wind through bare branches. Isaiah's boots sank slightly in the soft ground, each step measured. As he approached the edge of the clearing, the muted green of the hillside stretching out beneath the gray sky. Ghost's amber eyes, sharp and unflinching, met Isaiah's, and in that gaze there was a message older than words, a pull towards something unseen yet deeply familiar. Memories stirred, the flash of light from distant explosions, the chaos of soldiers scrambling, the smell of gunpowder and smoke, the flash of a comrade's face disappearing into uncertainty. Ghost paused mid-dig, shaking the soil from his muzzle, then resumed, revealing a corner of metal, tarnished and caked with decades of earth. Isaiah crouched low, heart beating against his chest like a drum, reaching out carefully, feeling the chill of the metal through his fingers as he brushed away layers of dirt to reveal a small, weathered box. His breath caught in his throat, a mixture of awe and reverence washing over him, the kind that comes when the past reaches across time to speak through a single, silent messenger. He looked up at Ghost, who sat patiently, tail low, eyes fixed, as if to say, "I found it. Now it's your turn to see." Isaiah opened the box slowly, the hinge creaking softly, and inside lay a pair of dog tags dulled with age, a small silver cross, and a folded note yellowed and brittle. He could feel the weight of the years, the whispered stories of a soldier who had hoped to leave behind a trace for someone who might return. Ghost nudged Isaiah's hand gently, a soft whine vibrating through the air, urging him to read, to remember, to honor. Isaiah unfolded the note with care, the faint scent of old paper rising, mingling with the pine and mist, and as he read the words, a quiet understanding settled over him, a mixture of sorrow and relief, as if the battlefield itself exhaled after decades of holding its breath. Ghost leaned against Isaiah's leg, warm and steadfast, and in that moment, the two of them shared the silence of recognition, the sacred knowledge that some bonds endure beyond time and space, that loyalty and memory have a voice even when words fail, and that the smallest pause can guide the heart to the truth hidden for generations. Isaiah Cole rose slowly from the damp ground, letting his fingers linger on the edges of the weathered box as the mist swirled around the clearing, thickening with each passing minute, carrying the scent of wet pine and the faint tang of cold metal from the dog tags. Ghost padded quietly beside him, ears swiveling at every rustle of distant leaves and the low whisper of the wind threading through the skeletal branches above, as if listening for echoes of a long-forgotten battle. Isaiah straightened, taking a deep breath that filled his lungs with the crisp, clean air of the highlands, and glanced down at the silver cross in his hand, the metal cool and heavy, a tangible link to a past that had seemed buried beneath the years. Ghost nudged his thigh with a soft, insistent pressure, amber eyes glinting with a focus that held both curiosity and understanding, urging Isaiah to move forward, to trust the path laid out beneath the blanket of fog and fallen needles. Together, they followed the gentle incline of the hill, each step deliberate, boots sinking into the damp soil, the silence between them filled only by the subtle scrape of claws against earth and the distant call of a morning bird. Isaiah felt the weight of the empty landscape, the way the battlefield seemed to stretch endlessly, as if holding its breath in quiet anticipation. And he thought of the comrades whose names were etched faintly into memory and into the worn wood of crosses that marked those who never returned home. He adjusted the strap of his field jacket, the leather creaking softly, and pulled the note carefully from the box, unfolding it with reverence, the brittle paper whispering against his fingers as he read the lines once more, tracing the familiar handwriting, the words carrying a cadence that felt alive, as though the writer's presence lingered in the air around him. Ghost sat down, tail sweeping the ground in a measured rhythm, eyes never leaving Isaiah, and in that stillness, Isaiah felt a surge of clarity, the invisible threads connecting the living to the lost, the past to the present, threading through time like a quiet river beneath the mist. He scanned the horizon, the gray morning light softening over distant ridges, and saw the gentle slope of the hill, dotted with markers worn smooth by rain and wind, each one a testament to loyalty, courage, and unspoken promises kept in the shadows of history. Isaiah knelt briefly, brushing his fingers across the damp earth where Ghost had uncovered the box, letting the cold seep through his gloves, grounding him in the reality of discovery, of connection, of presence that transcended time. The note crinkled softly as he refolded it, placing it back alongside the dog tags and cross, a silent pact that these tokens would remain with him until the story was told, the memory honored. Ghost rose, stretching, muscles coiling with a quiet energy, and they moved onward, the incline gentle, the mist wrapping around them like a veil, each step carrying the weight of remembrance and the lightness of newfound understanding. Isaiah breathed in the faint scent of moss and the crisp tang of morning dew, feeling the rhythm of his heartbeat align with the steady pace of Ghost at his side, and in that alignment, the past and present seemed to converge, the lessons of loyalty and courage whispering softly through the fog, guiding them toward the clearing ahead where sunlight would soon pierce the haze, illuminating the grass and the worn paths in a warm, golden glow that promised clarity, resolution, and the quiet joy of acknowledgement. Ghost padded forward with careful determination, occasionally glancing back to ensure Isaiah followed, as if to say that the journey was shared, that every step mattered, and that some truths revealed themselves not in grand gestures, but in quiet, attentive presence. Isaiah allowed himself a moment to close his eyes, to feel the gentle pressure of Ghost against his side, the soft brush of fur and the warm breath that carried reassurance. And he understood fully the subtle miracle of this connection, the way loyalty and memory can guide, console, and illuminate even in the foggiest, most uncertain dawn. The clearing opened gradually, the mist thinning just enough to reveal the gentle contours of the hillside, the scattered crosses, and the low, soft glow of early sun rays stretching across the earth like hands offering benediction. And Isaiah felt the quiet weight of gratitude settle in his chest, a serene recognition that the past had spoken through Ghost, that the bonds of loyalty and courage endured beyond time, and that this place, once shrouded in silence, now held a story of presence, remembrance, and the silent, steadfast heartbeat of those who watch, wait, and guide with unwavering fidelity. Isaiah Cole stood at the edge of the clearing, the early sun breaking through the dissipating mist, casting long golden streaks across the frost-speckled grass, each blade glinting like a tiny prism reflecting decades of memory and silence. Ghost sat by his side, ears alert, tail sweeping the ground in slow, deliberate arcs, eyes scanning the horizon as if reading the echoes of the past hidden in the landscape. The faint rustle of leaves carried on the breeze reminded Isaiah of distant voices and footsteps long since faded into the annals of this battlefield, and he felt a shiver run down his spine, not from cold, but from the weight of remembrance pressing softly upon him. He knelt, brushing his gloved fingers over the moist earth where Ghost had dug, the soil cool and yielding beneath his touch, and he carefully lifted the small silver cross, turning it in his hands to catch the sunlight, letting the faint glimmer reflect across his steady green eyes. Ghost nudged him gently, a soft, insistent pressure that drew Isaiah's gaze to the slope beyond, where the scattered, weathered crosses and the gentle undulations of the hillside created patterns of shadow and light that seemed almost deliberate, a natural rhythm guiding him towards something just beyond perception. Isaiah breathed deeply, the crisp mountain air filling his lungs, and felt the familiar thrum of his own heartbeat in time with the soft, measured steps of Ghost beside him, each paw print pressing into the damp soil like a mark of intention, a silent directive to continue, to witness, to honor. The note from the box rested against his palm, fragile and yellowed, its edges curling slightly, and as he unfolded it again, the words seemed to lift off the paper, carrying with them the cadence of the soldier who had penned them, a quiet plea wrapped in hope and remembrance, a testament to the bonds formed in moments of courage and steadfast loyalty. He traced the letters with a fingertip, feeling the texture of the paper and the rhythm of the ink as if it were a pulse, a heartbeat from a past now illuminated by presence and attention. Ghost shifted beside him, the soft padding of his paws on the uneven ground punctuating the silence, and Isaiah glanced down, noting the intelligent amber eyes watching him with unwavering focus, a reflection of understanding and purpose beyond ordinary comprehension. The sun rose higher, casting a warm, golden glow across the landscape, softening the contours of each cross, each indentation in the earth, transforming the clearing into a sacred canvas of memory and tribute. Isaiah felt a profound calm settle within him, the kind that comes from clarity and connection, as though the hill itself had whispered its secrets, guiding him to a deeper comprehension of loyalty, courage, and the enduring echo of promises kept. He stood slowly, adjusting his jacket, feeling the weight of the silver cross and dog tags in his hand, and let his gaze drift across the terrain, noticing the subtle patterns of light and shadow, the way the wind shifted the mist to reveal hidden textures and outlines, each detail adding depth to the silent story the land had carried for decades. Ghost pressed close, leaning against Isaiah's leg, and together they moved along the gentle incline, each step deliberate, each pause measured, as if walking through both space and time simultaneously. Isaiah's thoughts drifted to the men who had walked here before, to the laughter, the camaraderie, the unsaid farewells, and the quiet strength that had carried them forward even in the face of uncertainty. He adjusted his gloves, letting the warmth seep through, grounding himself in the moment, feeling the presence of history beneath his feet and the silent, guiding touch of Ghost at his side. The clearing began to open into a wider expanse, sunlight filtering through gaps in the trees to create dancing patterns across the ground, and Isaiah felt a quiet reverence swell within him, the weight of the past interlacing with the vitality of the present. Ghost moved ahead, occasionally glancing back, ensuring Isaiah followed, embodying the patient, unspoken communication that had always defined their bond, a bond that transcended words and relied instead on instinct, memory, and unwavering loyalty. Isaiah inhaled the sharp, clean air, the faint scent of pine and moist earth mingling with the warmth of morning sun, and allowed himself a brief, reflective pause, the kind that stretches time and deepens perception, letting the meaning of the discovery and the journey resonate fully within him. In that moment, the hill seemed alive, every sound, every shadow, every flicker of light part of a larger, harmonious rhythm, and Isaiah understood that this place, these objects, and this companion had converged to offer not just revelation, but a quiet affirmation of enduring fidelity, courage, and the invisible threads that bind. Past to present, life to memory, and human to dog in ways that words cannot fully capture, yet the heart always feels. The sun had climbed higher, scattering the last remnants of fog across the battlefield clearing, turning the dew on the grass into a cascade of sparkling light that seemed almost magical, and Isaiah Cole felt the warmth touch his face in a way that contrasted sharply with the crisp morning chill. Ghost moved beside him with a measured pace, occasionally lifting his nose to the breeze, as if catching faint whispers from the distant trees and the wind that drifted across the hilltops. Isaiah held the small box in one hand and the note in the other, tracing the edges with deliberate care, feeling the paper crumble slightly under his touch, yet holding firm as a testament to endurance over time. The hillside stretched away from them, dotted with weathered crosses and markers, each one a silent sentinel to the lives once lived here, and Isaiah's eyes lingered on them, noting the delicate interplay of light and shadow that created patterns that seemed almost purposeful, a natural choreography of remembrance. He paused, breathing deeply, letting the scent of pine and damp earth fill his senses, grounding him in the moment, and he felt the gentle pressure of Ghost's paw against his leg, a reminder of presence, of loyalty, of the quiet language shared between human and companion that required no words. The note, yellowed and brittle, contained the story of a soldier lost to time, but remembered through these tokens, a silent communication of faith, trust, and the promise that even when life ends, memory endures. Isaiah tucked the items carefully into his jacket, the weight comforting and solemn, and began to walk along the path Ghost indicated, the dog occasionally pausing to sniff the air or shift his stance, guiding Isaiah with a steady, intuitive certainty that only comes from years of training and instinct combined. The light shifted as they moved, the sun glinting off damp surfaces, highlighting the subtle textures of moss, stone, and earth, and Isaiah felt a sense of reverence settle over him, the kind that comes from being fully present, fully aware, and fully connected to a place that holds both sorrow and grace. Ghost led him to a low rise where the wind picked up, rustling the leaves and sending the small pines swaying gently, and Isaiah crouched again to survey the terrain, noticing the delicate arrangement of fallen branches, the curve of the land, and the subtle traces left behind by wildlife that had passed through in the early hours, each detail forming a tapestry of life and memory intertwined. He inhaled the crisp, clean air, feeling it fill his chest and clear his mind, allowing the weight of decades to rest lightly upon him. And he realized that this quiet moment, this deliberate observation, was a form of homage, a silent acknowledgement of the lives and stories that had been part of this place long before he and Ghost arrived. Ghost sat beside him, tail sweeping the ground in steady arcs, eyes bright and attentive, reflecting both intelligence and an unspoken understanding of the significance of their presence. And Isaiah reached down to rest a hand on his shoulder, feeling the warmth of fur and the gentle, reassuring weight of companionship. The note remained in his other hand, its words like echoes that resonated across the clearing, soft and persistent, offering guidance, solace, and a reminder that even in absence, connections endure, and promises made in life can persist beyond it. Isaiah took a step forward, then another, following the subtle incline toward the top of the hill, Ghost moving seamlessly ahead, sensing every nuance of the land and guiding him with instinctual precision. And Isaiah allowed himself to appreciate the intricate choreography of movement, memory, and intuition that led them forward. The clearing opened gradually to a broader vista, the sunlight breaking fully through, casting a warm, golden illumination across the hillside, the old crosses, and the soft, green grass, turning every shadow into a delicate play of light that seemed almost intentional, like a silent celebration of life and remembrance. Isaiah felt a swell of gratitude and clarity, the combination of history, loyalty, and presence coalescing into a profound understanding, a quiet revelation that the bonds between those who serve, those who protect, and those who remember are enduring, and that in the company of a steadfast companion like Ghost, even the faintest whispers from the past can be heard and honored with reverence and care. Ghost nudged him gently once more, prompting Isaiah to move toward a large stone at the edge of the clearing, the final marker of this quiet, sacred place. And as he approached, the sense of completion, of connection, and of unwavering fidelity settled fully over him, wrapping the morning in a gentle serenity that spoke of loyalty, trust, and the subtle, enduring miracles found in attentive presence and shared memory. The wind shifted slightly, carrying the faint aroma of pine resin and damp earth across the hill, brushing against Isaiah Cole's face as he adjusted his jacket and looked down at Ghost, whose amber eyes glimmered with quiet intent, reflecting the soft light of the rising sun. The dog padded forward, nose close to the ground, tracing invisible lines through the frost-kissed grass, and Isaiah followed without hesitation, feeling the subtle rhythm of their steps harmonize, as if the hill itself acknowledged their shared purpose. Each footfall pressed lightly into the soil, leaving impressions that seemed to echo the passage of time, a gentle reminder of the countless soldiers who had traversed these slopes before them. Isaiah's hand lingered over the dog tags in his pocket, feeling the cool metal and the faint, worn texture of the engraving, and he could sense the silent stories embedded within them, whispers of loyalty, courage, and lives interwoven with memories now resting beneath the fog. Ghost stopped momentarily, ears twitching, and Isaiah paused as well, listening to the soft rustle of leaves and the distant trill of a bird, sounds that seemed ordinary yet carried a weight of significance in the quiet expanse. Isaiah knelt down briefly, letting his fingers brush against the damp moss and scattered pine needles, grounding himself in the presence of the land, the air crisp and clean, carrying the faint scent of earth, wood, and the subtle minerals of stone. He straightened slowly, taking in the wider view of the clearing, where light and shadow danced across the gentle undulations of the hill, illuminating the worn wooden markers and the delicate contours of the terrain, each element resonating with the legacy of those who had walked here and the memories held silently by the soil itself. Ghost shifted closer, pressing gently against Isaiah's leg, tail sweeping the ground in a slow, steady arc, a subtle reassurance that the path forward remained aligned with purpose and intention. Isaiah inhaled deeply, the fresh morning air filling his lungs, feeling the pulse of life in the quiet movement of nature around him. The sway of branches, the gentle hiss of wind through the needles, the soft shimmer of dew catching the sunlight, each detail composing a symphony of observation, reflection, and reverence. He reached down to touch the small silver cross once more, turning it slowly in his hand as the light glinted against its surface, a symbol both tangible and ethereal, carrying with it the essence of loyalty and remembrance, a bridge between past and present that spoke softly to those willing to listen. Ghost's ears flicked toward a distant sound, subtle and fleeting, and Isaiah followed the gaze, sensing the undulating energy of the clearing, noting the way the shadows shifted and the sunlight highlighted textures previously unnoticed, each movement of light and leaf reinforcing the stillness and gravity of their journey. Isaiah's thoughts wandered briefly to the soldiers whose names were etched into memory and onto the wooden markers scattered across the hillside, their stories invisible yet palpable, connecting the living and the lost in a silent chorus that resonated through time and space. He rose fully, feeling the cool metal in his pocket and the firm, reassuring presence of Ghost at his side, and he allowed himself to move with measured steps along the incline, each one deliberate, each pause intentional, letting the landscape guide them through the interplay of history, memory, and the living energy of loyal companionship. The clearing gradually opened to a broader expanse, sunlight streaming more fully, illuminating the subtle variations of green, brown, and gold in the grass and foliage, transforming the environment into a canvas of light that celebrated endurance, remembrance, and the quiet, steadfast presence of life continuing in the wake of time. Isaiah felt a gentle swell of gratitude, the quiet, unwavering pulse of fidelity, courage, and trust resonating within him as Ghost guided him toward the edge of the slope, the horizon stretching out with distant hills and trees, each detail reflecting the sacred rhythm of attention, care, and shared understanding, a testament to the bonds between human and companion, past and present, memory and living presence, all converging in a single, harmonious moment of awareness and connection. The sun had begun its slow climb, casting a warm amber glow across the frost-touched clearing, turning each droplet of moisture on the grass into a tiny prism that sparkled in the early morning light, and Isaiah Cole felt a quiet reverence settle over him as he took in the panorama before him. Ghost moved with deliberate care at his side, paws pressing into the soft, damp earth, tail sweeping slowly, ears swiveling to catch every subtle shift in the wind, every distant whisper of leaves brushing against one another, as if listening for messages carried from long ago. Isaiah adjusted the strap of his field jacket, feeling the small silver cross and dog tags pressed lightly in his palm, the metal cool and grounding, a tangible connection to lives that had touched this land before him, and a gentle hum of remembrance stirred in his chest. He inhaled deeply, the crisp air carrying the scent of pine resin, earth, and the faint mineral tang of stone, and let his gaze drift across the undulating hills, noting the soft shadows cast by the morning sun, the way the light filtered through sparse trees, highlighting every subtle variation in color, texture, and form, as if the landscape itself were breathing in rhythm with his own heartbeat. Ghost paused at the edge of a small rise, nose low to the ground, scanning the soil with precision born of instinct and training, and Isaiah followed, sensing that the dog had detected something imperceptible to his own senses, a subtle shift in the air, a trace of history waiting to be honored. Isaiah bent to brush a hand over the moss-covered earth, feeling the damp, springy texture beneath his fingers, letting the tactile sensation root him in the moment, and he felt the quiet weight of time pressing softly around them, the invisible echoes of footsteps and whispered conversations from long ago threading through the mist. The note rested in his other hand, its edges curling slightly, yellowed with age, and Isaiah ran his fingers over the delicate paper, tracing the familiar script, absorbing the cadence of words written in hope and trust, a bridge across decades connecting past and present, life and memory, human and loyal companion. Ghost shifted closer, leaning gently against Isaiah's leg, a reassuring warmth and steady presence, eyes bright, focused, mirroring the intensity of Isaiah's own attention to the subtle signs the clearing offered, and together they moved forward with a shared purpose, each step deliberate, measured, and full of quiet anticipation. Isaiah noticed the way the sunlight danced across the frost, illuminating blades of grass, small stones, and scattered pine needles, each detail taking on a luminous quality that seemed almost intentional, a natural choreography of memory and observation. The hill gradually opened to a broader view, where distant ridges shimmered under the golden light, their contours softened by mist and shadow, and Isaiah felt a gentle swell of gratitude rise in his chest, an awareness of the continuum of loyalty, courage, and remembrance that threaded through the land. Ghost led him with careful precision toward a low stone marker partially obscured by early morning fog, nose tracing unseen patterns in the soil, alert to every subtle variation, and Isaiah followed, letting the dog guide him, trusting the unspoken communication that had always defined their bond, a silent understanding that went beyond language. Isaiah paused briefly at the marker, feeling the slight incline beneath his boots, the weight of the cross and tags still warm in his hands, and he glanced down at Ghost, whose amber eyes reflected not only awareness but the steady, calm assurance of shared purpose. The clearing around them seemed to breathe, the soft rustle of leaves, the gentle sway of pines, and the faint scent of dew-laden grass creating a symphony of sensation that enveloped them both in serenity, presence, and connection. Isaiah knelt, letting his fingers brush lightly over the stone, tracing the gentle curves worn smooth by time, absorbing the quiet gravity of the moment, and he felt an invisible thread tie him to the soldier whose dog tags and cross rested now in his possession, a living testament to loyalty, courage, and the enduring bond that links human and companion across time. Ghost nudged him softly with his nose, urging him to stand and continue, and Isaiah rose, feeling the cool breeze lift the mist from his face, the sunlight warming his shoulders, and together they moved along the gentle slope, each step measured, conscious, and deliberate, as if walking through both the present and the layers of memory embedded in the land, absorbing the quiet lessons of patience, presence, and fidelity that the clearing offered in abundance. Isaiah inhaled the crisp, clean air again, letting it fill his chest, feeling the rhythm of his heartbeat align with Ghost's steady movements, sensing the subtle music of wind, light, and earth that guided them forward, carrying with it the soft, enduring echoes of trust, remembrance, and the quiet miracles that unfold when one listens closely to the language of loyalty and the silent stories that unfold beneath the morning sun. The gentle rise of the sun painted the frost-covered hills in warm hues of gold and amber, each ray stretching across the clearing and highlighting the delicate contours of the moss-laden stones, and Isaiah Cole felt a soft calm descend over him as he stepped forward, Ghost faithfully at his side, ears swiveling to catch every subtle sound carried by the crisp morning air. The faint rustle of fallen leaves, the whisper of wind through skeletal branches, and the distant song of a morning bird blended into a quiet symphony that filled the space with life and memory simultaneously, grounding Isaiah in the present while evoking echoes of the past. Ghost paused for a moment, nose low to the earth, sniffing at an indistinct mark in the soil, amber eyes bright and attentive, and Isaiah crouched, placing a gloved hand gently on the dog's head, feeling the warmth and strength that radiated from him. The subtle cadence of his breathing and the rhythm of his heartbeat mirroring his own in a perfect, unspoken harmony. Isaiah's gaze swept across the clearing, taking in the old crosses, the gentle slopes, and the soft interplay of shadow and light, and he felt the weight of the decades settle around him, each step forward an acknowledgement of the lives and memories etched into the land, a silent communion with those who had walked here long before him. He lifted the small silver cross once more, turning it in his hand to catch the light, the metal cool against his fingers, a tactile reminder of loyalty, courage, and enduring connection, and he held it close to his chest, drawing strength from the tangible link to those who had gone before. Ghost nudged him gently, a soft, insistent pressure, and Isaiah followed him along the incline, each footfall deliberate, pressing lightly into the damp, frost-speckled soil, the subtle crunch beneath his boots a grounding cadence that harmonized with the soft brush of Ghost's paws. The wind shifted, carrying with it the scent of pine, wet earth, and faint minerals from the stones, and Isaiah inhaled deeply, letting the fragrance fill his chest, filling him with a sense of presence, awareness, and quiet reverence for the delicate balance of past and present. The note, carefully folded and preserved in his pocket, seemed to hum with the voice of its author, whispering of hope, loyalty, and the enduring bonds between those who serve, those who remember, and those who accompany them with unwavering faith. Isaiah adjusted his jacket, feeling the warmth seep through the layers, and let his gaze wander to the horizon, where the golden light kissed the ridges and valleys, casting long, soft shadows that danced across the ground, revealing patterns in the grass, stones, and scattered foliage that seemed almost intentional, like nature itself was guiding him toward understanding and insight. Ghost led him toward a gentle slope, where the markers and small stones created a subtle pathway, each step forward revealing textures, shadows, and light in a delicate interplay that seemed to echo the rhythms of memory, loyalty, and reflection that permeated the clearing. Isaiah knelt briefly, brushing his hand over the frost-tipped moss and soil, grounding himself in the tactile reality of the space, the cool dampness and soft give of the earth beneath his fingers serving as a reminder of the enduring presence of history and the steadfast commitment of those who had walked these paths. He rose slowly, sensing the subtle shift in the air, the interplay of light and mist that suggested hidden details waiting to be discovered, and he allowed himself to move with measured steps, attentive to the signals of Ghost, trusting the dog's instinct and awareness, and together they continued along the incline, each step a silent testament to faith, loyalty, and the quiet miracles that emerge when one listens with patience, presence, and an open heart. Isaiah's breath filled his chest, steady and calm, as he let the rhythm of movement, light, sound, and memory converge into a singular awareness, each sensation layering upon the other to create a profound understanding of the enduring bonds between human and companion, past and present, the living and the remembered, and Ghost walked at his side, a faithful guide, a quiet witness, and a living embodiment of steadfast loyalty that carried them forward through the misty hills into the quiet expanse where understanding, reverence, and serene connection awaited them. Ghost stopped where the slope bent toward the eastern edge of the clearing, and this time he did not dig. He stood perfectly still, white coat glowing in the morning light, amber eyes fixed on a narrow line of stones half hidden beneath grass and frost, as if the earth had drawn a quiet arrow only he could read. Isaiah Cole felt the change before he understood it. The air seemed to thin. The wind softened. Even the birdsong pulled back into the trees, leaving only the slow sound of his breathing and the faint creak of leather as he tightened his hand around the small box in his jacket pocket. He stepped closer, careful not to disturb the old ground, and saw that the stones were not random. They formed a path, nearly swallowed by moss, leading away from the battlefield cross toward a shallow dip between two pines. Ghost looked back once, not impatient, not afraid, only certain. Isaiah followed. Every step carried the quiet weight of memory. His boots pressed into damp soil. The grass brushed against his cuffs. The smell of pine needles, wet bark, and cold stone rose around him like incense in an empty chapel. He thought of the note again, the careful handwriting, the dog tags dulled by years and darkness, the silver cross that had waited beneath the earth for someone faithful enough to find it. He thought of all the names spoken at ceremonies, all the folded flags, all the letters mailed to homes where porch lights stayed on longer than they should. Then Ghost lowered his head and touched his nose to the base of the nearest pine. Isaiah crouched beside him. There, beneath a curtain of brown needles, was a second marker. Not a cross this time. A flat piece of fieldstone, almost smooth, with faint scratches across its face. Isaiah brushed it clean with his glove. At first the markings meant nothing. Then sunlight slid across the stone, catching the shallow grooves, and the words appeared as if they had been waiting for the right morning to return. "Tell my mother I heard her." Isaiah froze. His throat tightened. He read it again, slower this time, letting each word settle into him. It was not a military message. It was not a report. It was a son remembering home. Ghost sat beside the stone and released a soft breath, the kind of sound he made at night when Isaiah stirred from old dreams and the dog pressed close without being called. Isaiah reached for the note and unfolded it with steady hands. Near the bottom, beneath the lines he had already read, there was another sentence he had almost missed in the weak light near the cross. "If you find the small stone east of me, she will know I was not alone." Isaiah closed his eyes. For a moment, the hillside disappeared, and he could imagine a young Marine beneath a wide American sky, thinking not of medals or glory, but of a mother somewhere far away, maybe in a small kitchen with a radio playing softly, maybe humming the song she once sang to him when thunder rolled over the roof. Isaiah did not know her name yet, but he knew the shape of that love. It was the kind that traveled across miles, the kind that waited without proof, the kind that could make a grown man kneel in wet grass and whisper, "I will tell her." Ghost leaned into his shoulder, warm and steady, grounding him back into the present. Isaiah placed his hand on the dog's neck, feeling the slow pulse beneath the white fur, and for the first time that morning, his own composure broke quietly. No sound came at first, only a trembling breath, then another, not from weakness, from recognition, because Ghost had not just found objects under the earth. He had found a message that still belonged to someone living. Isaiah looked toward the open horizon, where the golden lights spread over the hills in long bands, touching every marker, every blade of grass, every scar of old weather left on the wood and stone. He understood then why Ghost had pulled him past the cross, past the place where everyone else would have stopped. The dog was not chasing sin alone. He was following a promise. Isaiah carefully wrapped the note again, placed the silver cross beside it, and rested the dog tags over his palm for one quiet second before closing the box. The metal was cold, but the moment felt alive. Ghost rose and turned back toward the battlefield cross, walking slowly now, no urgency left in him, as though the hard part had been done. Isaiah followed with his head bowed, the wind moving gently across his shoulders. Behind them, the small stone remained in the sunlight, no longer hidden, no longer forgotten. Ahead of them, the old cross waited on the hill, and beyond it, the road back to the world of voices, records, families, and names. Isaiah knew there would be calls to make, a mother to find, a story to carry with care. But for one more minute, he stayed in the quiet with Ghost, letting the morning hold them both, because some truth should not be rushed after spending years beneath the earth, and some messages arrive only when a loyal heart refuses to stop listening. Isaiah Cole returned to the old cross with Ghost walking close beside him, the small box held carefully against his chest as though it carried something still breathing, something too fragile for the noise of the world below the hill. The clearing had grown brighter now, the morning fully opened across the battlefield, and the fog that once hid the markers had lifted into thin white ribbons drifting between the pines. Every cross seemed clearer. Every stone seemed nearer. The air smelled of wet grass, cedar bark, and sun-warmed earth, and somewhere beyond the trees, A bell from the small memorial chapel at the foot of the hill rang once, soft and distant, like a hand placed gently on the shoulder of the day. Ghost stopped before the weathered wood and sat down without command, his white fur ruffled by the breeze, his gaze calm, his work nearly finished. Isaiah knelt beside him and laid the box on the ground between them. For several seconds, he did not open it. He simply rested both hands on the lid and let the quiet settle. He thought of the words carved into the hidden stone. Tell my mother I heard her him. He thought of the name on the dog tags, Daniel Mercer, and how a name can disappear from daily conversation but never truly leave the hearts that loved it first. Isaiah had seen many forms of courage in his life, but this one felt different. It was not loud. It did not ask to be seen. It had waited beneath soil, frost, rain, and years, asking only that someone return with enough tenderness to listen. Ghost leaned forward and touched his nose to Isaiah's wrist. The gesture was small, but it opened something in him. Isaiah removed the dog tags, the silver cross, and the folded note from the box, arranging them on a clean strip of cloth from his pocket. The sunlight moved over each item slowly, brightening the dull metal, catching the worn edge of the cross, warming the yellowed paper until it looked almost golden. Isaiah lowered his head. He did not make a speech. He only whispered, "Daniel, we found you." The wind moved through the grass. Ghost's ears lifted, and in that stillness, Isaiah felt no answer in words, but he felt a peace so deep it seemed to rise from the ground itself. A few Marines appeared at the far edge of the clearing, drawn by the length of his absence. Captain Aaron Whitaker was the first to approach, his steps careful, his face unreadable until he saw the items resting on the cloth. Behind him came Corporal James Miller and two younger Marines, their voices fading before they reached the cross. No one asked what happened. Not at first. Some discoveries explained themselves by the way a man kneels beside them. Isaiah looked up, his dark eyes wet but steady, and held out the dog tags. Captain Whitaker took them with both hands, reading the names silently. His jaw tightened. Then his shoulders dropped, as if a weight he had not known he carried had finally been named. Ghost remained seated between them, noble and still, his gaze moving from one Marine to the next, accepting their silence as the only proper tribute. Isaiah unfolded the note and read the final lines aloud, his voice low, careful, and unbroken. When he reached the words about the small stone and the mother's hymn, Corporal Miller turned away and pressed a hand over his mouth, not from shame, but because some feelings arrived too large for the body to hold neatly. One of the younger Marines removed his cap. Then another did the same. Soon every man in that clearing stood bareheaded beneath the soft morning sun. Isaiah placed the silver cross back in the center of the cloth and looked toward the eastern slope where the hidden stone waited in the light. "We need to find his family," he said. Captain Whitaker nodded once. "We will." Those two words carried more than procedure. They carried promise. Ghost rose then, slowly, and stepped toward the old cross. He sniffed the base, circled once, and lay down in the grass, his chin resting near the place where he had first dug. The sight drew every eye. Isaiah understood. Ghost was not guarding evidence. He was keeping watch. One last watch. The Marines did not move for a long time. The world below them continued as it always had. Cars on distant roads, morning chores in nearby towns, coffee poured, doors opened, ordinary lives beginning without. Knowing that on a quiet hill, a forgotten message had finally reached daylight. Isaiah stood beside Ghost and let the warmth of the sun settle across his shoulders. He knew the next part would take patience. Records would need to be checked. Calls would need to be made. A mother, if she was still alive, or a family if she was not, would need to receive a box that had waited longer than any letter should. But the fear of not knowing had ended. The silence had been broken gently, and as Isaiah looked down at Ghost, he understood that faith is sometimes less like thunder and more like a dog returning to the same patch of earth until the truth is uncovered. He placed one hand on Ghost's head and whispered, "Good boy." Ghost closed his eyes for a heartbeat, accepting the words with the quiet dignity of a soul that had done what it came to do.